Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Rich Louttet. I'm Head of Sector Transformation at eCampusOntario, and looking forward to leading this really important discussion with a group of outstanding experts that have agreed to join us for 1 hour today. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. For our question and answer period at the end of the session, we will use the Q&A box. You can use that box to submit at any time, and we'll take your questions in for our final 10 minutes of the discussion. To turn captioning on, please click More at the top of your screen, and then on Language and Speech, and it will show you the live captioning options. This is a notification that this webinar will be recorded, and if you see links on slides that we share when we're not having our panel discussion, they are clickable. In the unlikely event that we experience an unplanned disruption during our presentation today, we may conclude the session immediately. And if this happens, we will follow up with participants by email. With that, I'd like to move on and just first begin by acknowledging and honoring the offices of eCampusOntario are located on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. I recognize and I'm grateful for the legacy of all past, present, and future generations of First Peoples on this land. In Ontario, the Indigenous institutes listed on this slide make up the third pillar of Ontario's post-secondary education system, along with colleges and universities. To learn more about what the Indigenous institutes offer, please check out their website at the Indigenous Institutes Consortium. I'm going to give more screen time to our panelists at this point. So today's conversation focuses on dual-use research and the rapidly evolving defense innovation ecosystem, an area of growing strategic importance for institutions, industry, and governments alike. The Ontario Defence Industrial Strategy is creating meaningful opportunities for Ontario organizations to forge partnerships that accelerate research, innovation, and commercialization towards sovereign national defense targets and in support of the national prioritization on defense spending. In this rapidly evolving environment, many businesses and institutions are asking, where do we even begin? So it is my pleasure to bring together such a diverse group of perspectives across academia, defense, and business for this roundtable conversation. Today's conversation is designed to cut through the ambiguity around dual use, highlight the most promising opportunities, and give institutions a clearer sense of how to engage. We'll also explore the practical realities that shape this work, from governance and partnerships to risk, readiness, and responsible action. Our goal is for today's discussion to move beyond insight and help institutions to identify practical pathways into the space through partnerships, shared facilities, and deeper engagement with the broader defense innovation ecosystem. We have 5 extremely brilliant experts with us today and only 1 hour. So I'm going to get us started right away by introducing each of the panelists. We have Bernie Derible, Ontario's Agent General in Southeast Asia and the province's military and defense representative. Les Jacobs, Vice President, Research and Innovation at Ontario Tech University. Nathalie Méthot, Dean of Teaching and Research at Cité College. James Yurichuk, CEO of Wuxly. And Meghann Coleman, National Executive Director of Lab to Market. Welcome, and thank you for being with us for this important conversation. So to get things started, Les, I'd like to start with you. Could you share with us what we mean when we say dual use in a post-secondary context, and where do people often misunderstand it?
Thanks, Rick. And before I begin, I just want to thank eCampus for sort of providing leadership and pulling this panel together. And truthfully, the benefit on my end is being in a conversation with the sort of really strong panelists and you as the host. For dual use is at its essence, it's what the name suggests. A lot of technology is not narrowly tailored. There's different technologies that can be used for many different uses. In this particular context, it really is about technology that either was developed for the defense sector, but was discovered to have much wider applications. And there are some very familiar historical examples, things like GPS and arguably the web are sort of two of the biggest sort of everyday examples of that kind of technology more globally. And of course, the flip side is technology developed in other sectors where there was a growing realization that there are an immense amount of opportunities in defense applications. And so it sort of straddles both of those. And there you think about 10 years ago when so many people with sort of teenage children were discovering drones and those kinds of technologies. And then the growing realization in the general public about how drones and the rapid development of drones in some of those sectors have immense defense applications. Another area where Ontario Tech does a lot of work is in, for example, sensors, where sensors, fabulous data collection tools, and of course, now a central part of defense applications. So there's many examples. The challenges or risks really is in my view in the university sector to try to really recognize when dual use is an issue. And so one of the biggest factors in university spaces in the last sort of 5 years has been around research security and realizing that a lot of technology that was being developed in universities has dual use in the defense sector and has generated a lot of interest by, if you want, other countries who may not really have our security interests at their heart. So that's probably the most glaring example in the university sector.
Thanks very much, Les. I think the more you start to explore this space, you understand how dynamic and varied the innovations can be. Bernie, I would love to hear from your perspective. I imagine you're seeing a lot of different initiatives, pitches, partnerships. What does dual use mean to you in your role, playing such a significant role leading the Ontario Industrial Defense Strategy? Oh, Bernie, I think you're muted right now. Can we get Bernie's mic?
I owe you all a case of whatever you like to have for that. It's only been since COVID that I haven't figured that out. Listen, thank you all for inviting me here today. And Les has really probably given the definition of it all. And where I come from it, folks, is not just because I have this appointment. Those of you who know me, I'm actually go all the way back. I was a Cold War soldier 40 years ago. All right. I was a tank commander when the wall was still up. And I've been involved in just about everything Canada's done since then. And since 2006, I've been involved almost primarily in every single counterinsurgency asymmetrical warfare that's going on right now. So I bring that piece to it and a long connection. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to tell you, I had a long connection with the U.S. military and government. And since retirement many years ago, I've watched how they absolutely, to Les's point, there's so many things going on. I've actually coined the term, and you'll see some of the work I've recently authored with our team on the framework of the strategy. And I almost go multi-use. I'm trying to actually get people off the dual use thing. And I think Les kind of made some references to that. He made some good points. You know, microwave ovens, by the way, folks, military invention, blood transfusions, military. The marine biology sector Dolphins were used to create sonar. All of us have tuna sandwiches. The little bubbles that go on the side of a tuna is now in nuclear submarines to make them quieter and more efficient. So I've seen it, been there, done it. I've seen bad guys use drones. I've seen bad guys use cell phones to do vehicle. We do so much. Your collective is working on things right now. One of your super smart students is working on something with all the right intent, all the right everything. Not even probably never used the word defense until about a year ago when Prime Minister Carney decided to go big on defense. And there's something out there. There's 10 things that are happening. And I know everyone's getting excited about drones and cyber and quantum and all that. Well, you know what? They were all doing that anyway, right? So now what are the applications that are going to be used? So what I've been telling folks, and I spoke at the Empire Club yesterday, I challenged everybody. Don't get nervous around defense. We have a tendency in our lovely country to go from risk and know first, and then see if it's okay. Other folks, even our NATO partners, other people are starting from yes, and that looks like a good idea, and then they put the rails on it and the ethical and morality rails. I'm just suggesting, and maybe I don't know how to spell risk just based on my background, but the point of the matter being, there's a gentleman named Prime Minister Carney who took a lot of risk. He's put a lot of money against the fisc. He has given us political will. He's given us a lot of money here. He's one of the first prime minister ever to actually include research and that kind of thing in his defense modality. So I say go for it, folks. I'm very much involved in academia. I've got a bunch of stuff I've done in my life, but all I'm telling you is we got an incredible ecosystem with what's represented in this call. We've got some folks maybe in their basements or in their garages, but I think we need to start with yes, sounds cool. Let's reinforce it and see where it goes. So I'll leave it at that. So I'm fired up about it, and I think multi-use is the way to go.
Thank you, Bernie. I think at this point, I'd like to toss to you, James. I'd love to hear your perspective as a business owner. What are some of the most exciting dual-use potentials in advanced textiles innovation, and what are some of the barriers on your radar that we can work together to overcome?
Yeah, excited to get into it. And first off, I say, Bernie, thanks for your service. I want to recognize that and really appreciate it. But I'm also excited to have the audience that we're having at our call right now, because when you look at some of our adversaries and when you look at some of their top talent, the top engineers, traditionally in North America, we've deployed them in traditional brand building settings, build phones, build other equipment. But when you look at our adversaries, they're taking their top talent and they're directing them towards military. And so this is what we're competing against a little bit. They're also, they don't have those guardrails and some of the long bureaucratic processes that we have in place. So, I'm glad that we're giving it a lot of focus here from the academic level. When it comes to textiles, I really think that there's a great opportunity within Canada right now. We're known as being a textile cold weather leading nation. When you look at the coalition of the willing who help procure items all over the world for Ukraine, and there's about 27 countries, they look at Canada as being the leader of winter clothing. And that's a reputation we built over the last couple hundred years as being a cold weather nation. And right now there's a lot of challenges happening in the north, not only to keep the operators warm, but also the equipment staying warm. There's such a challenge to operate in the Arctic environment. And I think a lot of that's going to come to advanced materials and textiles. So some of the soft goods that's going on. I really think that there's an opportunity to be doing exports around textile and clothing. There is a good infrastructure that does exist here, coast to coast. And it's something when Canada is choosing its winners and investors are looking, they're not only looking to fill capability gaps here in Canada, they want to find winners that can export and bring real wealth into the nation. I've been working with universities and monitoring some of the activity on smart textiles. So this is computer infused, electronically infused textiles that that give operator advantage. They will give they'll give advantages to the warfighter, but also operations. And some of the early interest signs I've seen has been around biomonitoring systems, ensuring health, live triaging, making sure people are staying in good conditions. And then from the dual use standpoint, defense clothing is so interesting to me because on the civilian side, some of the greatest fashion companies around the world, if you look at their histories, it was military moments where they had their big breakthrough. And I think that those opportunities exist right now in Canada.
Thank you very much, James. And I think I like your phrase, the coalition of the willing. I think that the kinds of people from our ecosystem that are on the call today are the coalition of the willing that are asking that question, how do we get involved? And you've outlined, Bernie, thank you for your enthusiasm, and then followed on by James, just a wide variety of spaces to for those that want to participate. And I think this is a really important moment where both businesses are figuring out how to adapt and pivot in changing markets, and campuses are going through their own adjustment related to things like changes in international student policy. And there is this third moment now where businesses and post-secondary institutions may have an opportunity to work together to advance some of these opportunities. I'd love to shift now over to the college side and ask you, Nathalie, how can colleges navigate the opportunities and challenges of participating in the dual use system? What are you seeing from your perspective and your colleagues?
Bonjour à tous et toutes. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this panel. I'm always glad to bring the college perspective. My work is connected to dual use. Like most colleges in Ontario, we operate applied research centers dedicated to industry innovation with existing technological capacities related to dual use, such as drones. So in terms of opportunities, so we're well positioned. We already work with companies closely since like the last 20 years. Under a demand pull model by starting with a problem and use our expertise to propose solutions. We actually have capacities in a lot of technologies related to dual use. We support companies to develop the technologies from TRL levels 3 to 9, such as and also, it's important to mention that companies retain the IP after the project is over. So the college transfers all the IP to the company so that they can commercialize the technology. So just basically what we can do, end-to-end advanced manufacturing, uncrewed system innovation, data-driven operational intelligence, combining autonomous vehicle prototyping, robotics, sensor-rich systems, and AI-enabled analytics, rapid prototyping, material development, smart manufacturing, mission-critical testing for aerospace, defense, and regulated environments, additive and subtractive manufacturing, machine vision, cyber resilient systems, mixed reality simulation, and digital twin post-processing. So it's just to give you an example of things that we do already with companies. We collaborate with those companies already, and we're there to support them. The second opportunity for us is to develop defense-ready talent. So colleges, our first mission is to develop skilled workers. So training technicians, technologists, specialists with skills in advanced manufacturing, all the technologies I mentioned, cybersecurity, AI, robotics, remote sensing, etc. So we will continue to do that, of course, related to dual use sectors. Another strength and an opportunity for colleges is that we develop collaboration and networks. It's in our DNA. We like to collaborate. We like to combine our expertise with other stakeholders. locally, regionally, provincially, and nationally. So that's our strength. We have a superpower, so that we're there we're very open to collaboration. We want to collaborate more with universities. So we're very eager to take part of this. In terms of challenges, there's a lot of challenges that we face. First of all, we need to establish an institution-wide strategy for defense. Like most academia, this is new for us, and we need to educate ourselves. We need to prioritize actions. We need to stay informed on research security, defense priorities. Just to maintain a presence at events right now is a full-time job. I mean, there are like webinars like this on a weekly base, events to attend. It takes a lot of time. Another challenge for us is to continue raise awareness as the college capacities to develop technologies. It's still not really well known, and this is something we need to explain, especially in the context of national defense and security. Another challenge is we need to certify our institutions for defense projects, people, physical spaces, computing infrastructure, or having access to those secure spaces in order to work with primes and tier 1 contractors. We need to build governance mechanisms. We're still figuring out the research security plan framework, and on top of that, we need to add the defense governance mechanisms. Another challenge is we need to obtain certifications such as the Control Goods Program, develop our infrastructure, personal capacity to take on more projects. I'm almost done with the list. Recruit qualified defense specialists to help integrate college activities in the defense space. As I said, it's new for us, and we need those qualified people like you, Bernie, to help us navigate through this new endeavor. And last but not least, we need to secure more funding to achieve all those goals. I'm done.
Did somebody capture Nathalie's list into the funding application? I think we can move quickly on that. Nathalie, thank you so much for that. I wanna highlight something that really stood out to me in what you said, and it is the business first model. For those that might have less awareness that this exists, there are many institutions that are actively ingesting ideas from business. And this is a model that I think is precisely one of the takeaways that we want to send everybody off with today. eCampusOntario does some important work to support that through our Ontario collaborative innovation platform. And through that, we actually ingest business challenges and match them with the lab equipment, physical lab space, and research expertise in order to advance an idea. And I think it's in those kinds of connection platforms where we're going to identify the coalition of the willing from the business sector as well as from the post-secondary sector to advance some of these opportunities. Meghann, I would love to hear from you now on the same question, opportunities and challenges. What are you seeing from your perspective with the work that you do amongst the various institutions across the country?
Perfect. Sounds great. So I'm coming from the academic research side of things. So Lab to Market, just for anyone that doesn't know, is a suite of experiential training programs for graduate students, postdocs, and their supervisors. And the goal is to really help them view what they're working on in the lab to see if it has commercial viability. So we're in all 15 universities. We work with colleges, and we have over 50 delivery partners. So dual use is a little new to us. We're going to launch a new dual use cohort in the fall. So I've spent recent months getting up to speed in this area, and I'm certainly still learning, but excited to share some insights as well as learn from my fellow panelists. So I approached it from, us developing a dual use cohort, and some opportunities really was the people side of things. So we were able to activate and identify some real dual use champions within Dalhousie, where I work, as well as across all the many networks we work with. So before anything structural, really you need to find people inside your institution who are already doing the work in dual use or previously have been in the defense space. In my case, we had someone at Dalhousie who was in the defense space, so they've become a go-to champion. Additionally, you really have to create awareness and educate people. So we have found that a lot of our researchers didn't see themselves as dual use. However, as mentioned on this panel previously, a lot of the research does have significant dual use application potential. So once we started educating and creating awareness, we were able to attract more people into the program. So I think an opportunity for people on this call is talk to your VP of research or your research office and ask them to identify 5 to 10 faculty or individuals that are already in this domain and then leverage them to learn more. I feel like that's been a really positive experience on my side of things. A challenge, and I think it was brought up, is process. So you really have to be on top of how you're managing things from security and all sorts of other perspectives. But again, that was finding that champion, that go-to person that helped us navigate the best practices for dual use program delivery. So recommend looking to someone who can be a research security officer for you. They can be your go-to person, so you can ask them questions, any red flags as you're navigating the program delivery. And then what they suggested is you take a research security checklist, you align it to the province of delivery that you're in and ensure that you're following right from the get-go in designing the program, that you're following that. We've also learned, and I'm sure Bernie could speak more to this, that there are nuances between defense versus dual use. So using dual use, you're a little less significant on the requirements from a security perspective, but dual use, it's a little more broad. Another, I would say, kind of issue could be governance. You really have to structure that properly. You can have the people and processes in place, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't have the appropriate oversight. So one thing we did, and I would recommend to anyone listening, is develop a dual use research advisory committee or working group. So a small standing body with clear terms of reference that includes your head of research, legal counsel, someone from your tech transfer office, and ideally someone from outside who has external defense experience so they can help advise. And then this group can help with approving potential partnerships. They can help review and escalate any research security risks. And they can also help you stay accountable if there's any questions that come from funders, government, or the public. I think this demonstrates to you as an institution that you are putting in the work and that you are developing, trust amongst this space. And then finally, protection is another challenge for sure. The biggest friction point in defense academic collaboration is around security. And this has been a space I've been really diving deep into. And again, I feel like other panelists can speak more to it, but it can be as simple as, do you have locks on your labs? Do you know who's accessing the labs? But it can be as complex as, every individual that touches the project requires very deep security clearances, background checks, all that type of stuff. And then additionally, there needs to be conversations around IP. And I know every institution is different, so I'm not going to weigh in too much on that, but just really be aware of your institution's policies so you can speak to that when you're having these conversations. And I'll just wrap up by saying, just be curious, ask to meet with people or be connected to people in this space. I feel like there's a real willingness now across Canada to collaborate and support in this area. So just put your hand up and ask questions would be my advice.
Those are great suggestions. Be curious. I love the advisory committee idea, though. That's a real concrete sort of thing that institutions can consider. You tossed partway through your response to Bernie. I just want to give him an opportunity to respond. Is there anything that you'd like to add, Bernie, in terms of advice that for institutions to be aware of or thinking about as they embark on this journey?
Absolutely. And Nathalie, thank you for your challenge list because it is significant. It's not a significant list, folks, who are listening on this call. And Meghann, did you know that you have a Dalhousie alumni sitting on the panel with you?
I didn't.
So you've just inherited me, and I'm pretty sure I can convince my boss, Premier Ford, that he's good friends with Premier Houston. So I'm pretty sure I can pitch up down your way and give you some advice in person. But all that aside.
You'll get an email from me.
Nathalie really summarizes. So to Rich's point, I hope you wrote that down, but let me just dive in here. You've all raised all these good points. James is actually, he's actually where the rubber hits the road here, right? He's going to use all your smart people to design his stuff as tier one. He makes a good point. Where we're running into problem, and I don't know if anyone followed the Empire Club event yesterday. James and I were there together. Nathalie makes a good point there. It's death by panel right now and death by presentation. But James and I, we met in person yesterday at the Empire Club. I got to be on the stage with the Commander of the Army. And the Commander of the Army made some pretty cool statements. I'm not so sure people were taking notes, but he made statements such as this. I need to use the academic world of Canada to train at least 80% of my folks. There's finally a realization, and oh, by the way, when I was serving, I couldn't understand why a cook couldn't go to their Red Seal cooking course at a college, or a mechanic, and we'll just throw a uniform on them. So we're there now. We're there. So it's going to take some time. And if anybody needs introductions to Major General Josh Major, very good friend of mine, I can make these links, because he is literally, he has this super long title, but it's actually Chief Human Resource Officer for the entire Canadian Armed Forces. The military still isn't good at making themselves sound civilian. And that's what he is. And this gentleman, I've worked with him in ops. I've worked with him when he was Commander of Ontario military. They picked the right guy. He can handle 18 things on the stove at one time, but he needs help. He admitted to the help. I told him, using my Ontario platform and now my honorary Dalhousie platform, I'm going to get this thing rolling. That being said, what's most important is the Commander of the Army said something that I hope everybody absolutely, and please write this down, everybody. And this is not my words, it's him, and I'm all in, because we talked about it before. If we continue doing things the way we have always done it, we're not going to get there. The Prime Minister has told us to get there. Boom. Second quote, the Army we have in hand now isn't the Army Canada or the citizens of Canada need. That's the vision, folks. And I don't know how every one of your institutions is going to fit into that intent thing, but I'll tell you, the Commander of the Navy and the Commander of the Air Force should be saying the same thing, and I'm quite confident they are. So let's take the challenges, as important as they are. And I can tell you on this call, particularly for the Ontario-based folks, I have convened, I've been very lucky. I've got an entire government at my beck and call to do stuff, right? So I have assembled a team. My chief of staff's on the call, Athena. We've assembled a team that's looking at things like intellectual property. Our intellectual property stuff, I think, was written in 1950 and hasn't been amended. We've got a team looking at that. We're probably going to knock out a quick strategy or a quick discussion paper, then bring all you people in, because we are literally, even government research money or whatever research money is coming up with some wow factor thing. And the next thing I know, Facebook bought it or Meta bought it, and we get like 15 cents. We get nothing for our country. So we're working at that. I publicly declared yesterday, based on my experience, based on a whole bunch of old thinking on security clearances, I'm taking this on. I am going to be the advocate for every single company, every single institute. Yes, it's important, but we've got tech going on right now. And I'm going to use this story to just summarize it. We've got folks making high precision, extremely important parts for CANDU reactors. Guess what? There's no security clearance for those. Now, I don't want the whole world to find out, go, oh, well, make them do security clearances. But the point of the matter being, it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to outfit a lab or something for this tier 3 security stuff. Well, we all know that what we call the flash to bang between commercialization and stuff is happening rapidly. You only have to stay in Ukraine for 48 hours to see Amazon dropping off drones, or buying stuff on eBay. It's come like this. The recent conflict between Iran and the United States and Israel is a clear indicator that people are buying commercial stuff already existing, slapping it together in some bunker and deploying it. So we need to now, even our security apparatus needs to understand, whoa. We can't have a legacy security platform that was designed in the 1950s, hasn't been updated, and then get to the army that we need in the future. We can't do it. It's impossible. So I just want to, on public record, my team is going to noodle this around a little bit. I got nothing to lose, folks. I'm kind of doing this gig pro bono. If someone doesn't like me upsetting them at National Defense Headquarters or upsetting them in the national security apparatus, so what? Because it will be the Achilles heel of moving forward, 100%. So that's my comment. So let me take on some of this stuff on your behalf.
Thank you, Bernie. I think
Athena,
a lot of
sorry.
people in the ecosystem are going to take you up on that offer, including us here
Yeah.
at eCampus Ontario on our next steps.
I was gonna say Athena right now is writing notes and she's having a heart failure about me I'm dropping public policy on a phone call.
Where's the big hook in the stage? I'm going to move us along. We have just a little bit more time together before we move onto our Q&A. And I'd like to ask each of the panelists, when we think about next steps and where we go next, if you could name one lever to pull in the next 12 months, policy, partnership, program, to materially strengthen Canada's defense innovation pipeline and supply chains, what would that be? James, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I've been saying this for a while. This reshore manufacturing is something that we've been really advocating for since day one here at Wuxly. You know, we've got to build that culture within Canada, and it starts with government. When we have a culture where industry, citizens, and government are chasing the lowest cost widget, and it doesn't matter where it's from, that's going to put us in a subordinate cycle, I call it. And we're seeking sovereignty right now. We've got to build for wealth within Canada. We've got to build that power. We got to build that authority, and that means bringing things back here and making them here. Traditionally, we're great at engineering items and then sending them elsewhere to be made. And what we've lost a little bit is the ability to innovate during that manufacturing process, to engineer the manufacturing, because one of the trends that's really coming into play now is being able to make things efficiently at cost and at scale. And we have examples of doing this in the past in Canada. We've lost quite a bit. It's eroded. We've been hollowed out in the last 30, 40 years. But now with all this interest with the Buy Canada policy, it's time to bring a lot of this work back to Canada, create good employing jobs, great opportunities, give directions for the university on projects and sectors to work on. And so you know, I'm a big advocate on buying Canadian and building up these companies, building we got to pick our Canadian champions. You know, when we look at prime contractors, the guys that sit at the top of the stack, the ones that control the projects, we've seen South Korea do it. We've seen places in the Nordics and Sweden do it, France, Canada. We haven't done that as well as these other countries. Now's our moment, and we got to aim high on it.
That's great. I think it speaks to the opportunity for just a Canada-wide pivot on multi fronts. Les, I'd like to ask you next. If you could pull one lever in the next 12 months, what would that be?
Yeah, I'll talk about something in a second, but let me just build on James's comments in general. That what Canada is really good at is ideation of concepts. Ontario Tech, to give you sort of two very concrete examples where Project Arrow, the all-Canadian EV, was built. We also have a terrific concept of a nano nuclear reactor. Both of those were developed not principally for the defense sector, but it's a really good example where, from a university's perspective, where we've really worked at that sort of TR5, TR7 level, that this is an opportunity to really commercialize and move those concepts to reality because of Canada's engagement in the defense sector. So just sort of pointing that out, that for people on the call, because I'm sure that there are many people at other institutions that know what a leader Canada is on sort of concept ideas. My sort of lever, I would say, and arguably both the biggest challenge but the biggest opportunity in Canadian universities, is we have superb world-class research facilities, testing facilities, and the challenge, because we really haven't had a defense industrial strategy with universities playing a big part, is a lot of those facilities are not really positioned to operate at the secret level. And certainly at Ontario Tech, that is one of our highest priorities. It's basically you get facilities that meet those standards because that's actually the precondition to succeeding and supporting our industry partners. And the language in university circles among sort of vice president research like me is to talk about core research facilities, but it's really moving those core research facilities to that secret level. It's both an investment, but it's a real opportunity. It's a space where we're able to offer smaller companies, but actually also big companies, unique facilities that basically work commercially because the costs are shared. That there's user fees for those industry partners. There's a mix in there of government research money, and it all sort of comes fruition. And because certainly in my case, I hold not only the secure goods policy, but I hold the IP policy. All the core research facilities under me, they all sort of come together. And that's a real strength in Canadian universities. It's a lever that hasn't been really pulled enough. And of course, crucially, the thing about universities is that we, at the same time, are always developing talent. Talent is what we exist for, and realizing that they all come together, meeting those pieces, and good research facilities give our students incredible hands-on experience that in turn allows some great job opportunities going forward.
Les, that's a really great example that you highlighted too. Like, some of us are aware of these pockets of innovation that are happening across Ontario, where a research facility understands which pieces of advanced manufacturing equipment can benefit small business in their catchment, and they are on site and they are accessible to those businesses to use. And that's one of the real benefits that's available for those that want to get more deeply involved in partnership work. Nathalie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's one lever that you would pull in the next 12 months.
I'll cheat a little bit because I'll mention two. So one aspect for me is we need to define the technologies that we need to develop. We've heard about drones and quantum, so that's very high level, and it's a start. But in order for colleges to help industry pivot to address the needs that we have in terms of technology development, we need to know exactly what it is, instead of like just developing dual use technologies that we don't know will be helpful in the end. And for that, we need funding programs. Colleges operate under very limited resources right now, and if we want to play a very important role, we need more resources. So defining the priorities in terms of technology development and funding programs.
Thank you, Nathalie. And Meghann, what's your one lever?
I would say partnerships. We always say it takes an ecosystem to raise a startup. So for us, we're really all about collaboration. And I think we all need to come together in this space and work together. And that's sort of the message that we're hearing from, the politicians, is they want to see some collaboration amongst all the different academic institutions. So I think continuing to leverage partnerships and be open to collaboration and be open to learning, I think, is really important.
Thank you, Meghann. So, Bernie, last word over to you. Final or a lever that you would pull in the next 12 months. And I have a feeling you might say shorter timeline than 12 months.
Yeah, no, we got to move, folks. It's a window of opportunities now. Maybe you'll read my book, The Door. Someone's knocking on the door, open it. We got to move. And all of you said it. I'm not gonna go any further than move now, work together. I'd love for you to give me what you all go in a room and arm wrestle, do whatever you need to do, but give me the top 20 or 30 projects, and I can start telling people, I can connect those dots for you. We've got quite a bit of bandwidth at the ministry that I'm sitting at. you need to do a bit of homework. You guys like that. All you academics like giving out homework. I'm going to give you some. Get yourself squared away and use people like myself and all my network of senior executives to help move that file and move that needle for you quickly.
So we have superb facilities. We need to use them, align the right funding, define our priorities, engage in more partnerships, reshore manufacturing, move now, work together, identify the top 30 projects. Yeah. That's a pretty straightforward action plan. And I think we've got a pretty good group of people to pull all of those things off starting this afternoon. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your perspectives. We're going to be transitioning over to the question and answer period very shortly. But before I do that, I just want to queue up, this conversation wasn't happen chance, and it wasn't just one standalone discussion. It is an important pebble in the pond of the ripples that eCampusOntario is supporting for the sector. And if you have not heard of this yet, we invite all of you to visit our website, defense.osip.ai. I mentioned before that we have a platform designed to take business challenges in, run them leveraging AI-based algorithms against the capabilities, lab, research expertise, individual pieces of equipment on campuses. Well, on top of that, eCampusOntario is deploying the dual use readiness assessment framework for the post-secondary education sector. And if you visit the site now, you will find the draft frameworks and a survey to provide your voice as we go through further refinement with the sector, making sure that it is covering everything that it needs to come, but with intention towards it being a tool that we can use to build capacity with post-secondary institutions that are asking the question, where do I even begin? To give them a roadmap and tell them where to go next. This also, I'm going to just share one slide if I can. I can't talk and run technology at the same time. I need a moment here, but we do have an event coming up on Friday, June 19th. We have just opened registration for that, and I do believe that one of my colleagues is going to be dropping the information in chat. June 19th, from campus to capability, participate in the defense innovation ecosystem, 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Key here in Toronto, with a very special guest. The Honorable Minister Quinn will be joining us and kicking off that event.
And that link is clickable on the slide, so you can sign up right now and get your tickets.
And if I could just have one quick alibi, I'm working directly with Minister Quinn's office. All you Ontario folks out there, Meghann, if you want me to call Premier Houston, I'm happy to do that as well. All that aside is he's very much engaged. I think he's actually, my Athena and some others are trying to get him out and about on all of this stuff. We need this awareness and PR, I call it, all that kind of stuff has to start happening. So I can tell you, not putting words in Minister Quinn's mouth, he's all over this as well, and we're really pushing on this file. So just wanted to let you all know that.
Thank you, Bernie. We appreciate the support. So I have some questions that are coming in, so I'm going to start. So Bernie, we do have a request for your personal email that did come in right away. So I think we'll handle that one offline, but we saw it come through. So the first question, I think they're out of order for me here. Sorry. I'm a faculty member at St. Lawrence College in Ontario. Like many colleagues, we're in a time of significant organizational change and our support structures are in flux. In this context, how can someone in my position lead from the front line? Any advice for this person?
Oh my gosh. The fact that you put that in the chat tells me you're already a leader. I teach leadership and stuff like that. So you know what? Keep leading. And I'm gonna hand over to Les or Nathalie or somebody in the academia, but it sounds like you're already a leader. So please, leaders lead. It's not easy to be a leader, but just please leading. Les, over to you. Bail me out, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important question, and it certainly goes back to the initial comments about a coalition of the willing. that one of the crucial features of both universities and colleges is very diverse communities, and a lot of different interests. Not everyone's interested in dual technology use. Not everybody's interested indeed in commercialization, so on. And really recognize what your own commitments are and what your sort of see the opportunities in your particular institution. In St. Lawrence College's case, there's a merger now happening with Fleming College, and Fleming College is truthfully quite close to Ontario Tech. You know, we're in the GTA, Fleming College is just a bit north of us. So sort of think about what are the opportunities in that merger rather than think about it as a negative. Think the terrific thing about Kingston, close ties with RMC and Queens. How you can you position yourself to really take advantage of the real pluses that you have both in your own institution geographically, and the fact that your institution is in a very malleable position as a sort of pioneer in the college sector around merging.
It is a great moment for the change makers to stand up. Next question. Most of the talks I've attended recently on defense have focused on tech, product development, and research. There hasn't been much talk about the social cultural side of things. So what supports or initiatives are underway to help communities adapt to this different way of thinking and working? And are there strategies or resources to help campuses scale up in appropriate ways to provide relevant programs to a surge in new military personnel?
I can answer. Go ahead, Les.
I was just going to say, at Ontario Tech, we host the NATO Diana testing facility, the only one in the GTA. And on my end, I've always thought about that facility as being sort of paired with a NATO training center. So at these industry days, and Bernie and I have been quite a few together, one of the notable features of the international vendors, whether it's Leonardo or Hanwha or whoever, they have a strategy of really building out training centers as part of the sort of vendor process. And there's a real unique opportunity in Canada, in the post-secondary sector, to really move into that space. Somebody made a comment earlier about the international student kind of context, and it's a bit of a cliche that sort of doors closed and windows open, but there really is something to be said for the post-secondary sector to really move on becoming homes for these training centers that are ideally going to be well funded. And for as much as we talk about meeting the employment needs, a lot of this is going to be about retraining, reskilling, taking people who are not 18 and 19-year-olds, but rather are people in the construction sector or in the automotive sector, and really reorienting them to what the opportunities in the defense sector. And historically, when that's happened, it's often turned out to be a real plus for those individuals who have been early movers in that space. So that would sort of be my sort of line there, that it is a unique opportunity.
And if I could double down on that, folks, if you look at the framework that was released last week that our team put together, there's like a watermark on there, the old watermark. It's called a whole of society thing. I'm talking nuclear, I'm talking critical minerals, I'm talking all of these things. And I've done a lot of whole society nation building efforts. That's what I'm calling this. The underpinnings of that is the defense piece. We don't need to reflect back when Rosie the Riveter became famous. We were able to do 60 planes a week up in Aurelia. Everybody was working there. You know, Lord Beaverbrook went to the pastors and ministers of the churches and said, can you please shorten your sermons so people can get back to work for the war effort? Okay. Now, I don't want to upset people on the call. I'm not trying to be religious. I'm just simply giving examples of, we are kind of on a war footing here. I know the shells aren't landing in Toronto and in Halifax, but the point of the matter being is that where I'm going with this, folks, hint, hint, we are looking at that strategy that was, we just leaked a little bit, just to get you all excited, is an industrial, actual modernization of Ontario industrial complex. Folks, I represent Ontario overseas. A week doesn't go by that I can't sell a CANDU reactor or a micro reactor or something. And guess what my answer always is? Oh man, it's going to be 8 to 10 years because we don't have enough workforce. We don't have enough this. Well, to Les's point, there's a lot of people that got some cool skills that may be 20, 30, whatever. We can, I don't know if it's sorry, I'm not academic. We got to retrain them for a year. And I know my boss is looking at all of these things because I'm the one that's all up in the Premier's grill all the time on this stuff going, we have this incredible workforce. And maybe instead of wearing, I don't know, a Ford or Toyota or Honda badge, you're going to go and do something else in the nuclear, but you're still using that skill set. So I think that between Les and I, the opportunity here to reskill and start thinking of a global, folks, the money that Canada's spending is a drop in the bucket to the trillions of dollars that's going to be on export. And with people like James, with their cool equipment and all the other cool stuff we've got going on, we should be, you know, Carney's challenged us to have hundreds of billions of exports. Let's look at that big picture on your vision map. Whoever that leader is that brought up this question. That's what I would recommend.
We're going to leverage the power of the ecosystem. So yeah. with that, Bernie, Les, Nathalie, Meghann, James, thank you so much. You are amongst the busiest people in the country today, and you made a whole hour for this sector because it is important. I'd like to send our gratitude for you and all of the great insights you've provided today. This conversation comes at a moment of real adjustment. Canadian businesses adapting quickly to shifting international markets, tariffs, and supply chain pressures. At the same time, post-secondary institutions are responding to major changes in international student policy and thinking long-term models for growth, partnership, and resilience. As you've pointed out today, this is the moment to pivot, and there is an opportunity and something to pivot into. It really is optimists that run our world, because doing big things requires first believing that it can be done. And across this sector, we have had the privilege of meeting the many people who embody that spirit. Change makers who are willing to rethink old assumptions, build new partnerships, and create possibilities where none seemed obvious before. If we carry that mindset forward, I am confident we can build stronger together, more resilient, and a more innovative future. As we close out today, I want to point to the practical next step of joining us on June 19th for the official launch of the Dual Use Readiness Assessment with special guest Honorable Nolan Quinn, Minister of Colleges, Universities, Research Excellence, and Security. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. It's great chat.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks.